Yeah. Please, my fellow three-room lovers and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Thursday, June 15th, 2017. Oh, man, such a beautiful, warm, but breezy, I can say, and I'm at CJ's Java Lounge, located at 400 Southwest 1st Avenue, Suite 1 to be exact, along the New River of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm at the southwest section along the Andrews Avenue Bridge, and the phone number is 754-301-5832. And, you can do functions, special meetings, and all that here as well. So you give them a call. Support the mom and pop shops in your local community instead of relying on the corporate entities, all right? So I'm taking the initiative on mainly going to be talking about what it is, Grenfell Tower that occurred in the west side of London. Very disturbing that it is. And the claims of faulty wires, it's been warned that it's unsafe, uninhabitable. But remember, you got folks out there think they're smarter than everybody else. So I'll be mostly addressing these particular topics and some good news on a states' rights level. It was happening in Maine once again. So let's just start this off. I got this from 21st Century Wire. It's a good site. Support them. Great work. And this one here is entitled Grenfell Tower, a Tory Wickerman. A special report. The week saw one of the worst disasters in recent history as runaway fires consume a low-income high-rise council estate in the London borough of Kensington and Chelsea. So far, police have confirmed 17 dead and have indicated that they expect to find more fatalities. As the old adage goes, there are no natural disasters, only human ones. But this horrific scene in West London symbolizes much more than simple negligence. The image of a Wickerman comes to mind, where low-income residents sacrifice at the altar of austerity, greed, and corporate privatization. As North Kensington towering inferno continues to smolder into the morning, circumstantial evidence is beginning to emerge of showing how conservative MPs sidelined legislation that would have required higher safety standards. According to reports, a group of Tory MPs have consistently voted against tenants' rights, including voting down Labour's amendment to the recent housing and planning bill, which would have required landlords to make their homes fit for habitation. Perhaps not surprisingly, the 72 Tory MPs who killed the legislation also just happen to be commercial landlords themselves. Could we say conflict of interest? To add insult to injury, Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, during his tenure as mayor of London, instituted cuts that stripped London of 7,000 of its firefighters in the last 5 years, with numerous fire stations and other cuts to frontline emergency services. How did this Grenfell Tower turn into a death trap for so many? The origination responsible for maintenance and safety at the social housing is the Kensington and Chelsea Tenant Management Organization, or KSTMO. But the organization name is deceptive. Far from being a tenant company, the TMO are actually a private company. A aloof ivory tower that sits far above from the actual residents and who manages 10,000 properties with handsome salaries and flees for selected executive and contractors. Although Grenfell Tower is owned by the Borough Council of Kensington and Chelsea, the management of the tower block is subcontracted out to the TMO. Ooh, interesting here. Something like some of the city councils and commissioners in the United States do the same thing. Bend over for the contractors. Critics of the Public-Private Partnership, or PPP, management handoff claim that the quasi-privatized TMO arrangement is rife with corruption, including sweetheart deals to contractors. It also enables connected board members to fleece poor residents while taking home enormous sums of money for doing little, if anything, for it. Last year, the KCTMO was paid £11 million, or $14 million in taxpayer money, to manage Grenfell Tower, according to the Mail Online. Four senior members of the TMO took £650,000 between them last year, and that's not all. There are also claims that there was no central sprinkler system, or it was also not working properly during the fire. Others have claimed that the new cladding encasing the block added during last year's $10 million refurbishment by Right-On Construction caught it like a matchstick. This petroleum-based flammable plastic exterior cladding was apparently added to the building to improve the view and cosmetic appearance of the tower, which have seen from a new development or private luxury flats in the locality. Apparently, this was all part of a regeneration project, which says to be completed last year on only one building, Grenfell Tower. And you can watch the full-length live feed of the fire here, which is by RT. So it's 9 hours, a little close to 10 hours long. So if you want to watch it, that's your discretion. I'm looking at a good amount of it, and it's very disturbing, I would just say. It gets worse. According to residents blog Bella Caledonia, it emerges that the local council, Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, actually threatened a local blogger and action group with legal action for calling to attention the state of the building. We're also told that Theresa May's chief of staff sat on report warning high-rise blocks like Grenfell Tower were vulnerable to fire. And you can read the letter here by Velmar Sama, and it's came out the 25th of July, 2013, and it was says here, Dear Mr. Connor, reference Grenfell Action Group website and blog. I am advised by the Director of Housing that you are the author of the Grenfell Action Group blog and maintainer of the website. I am instructed that you previously posted blogs that have in general been critical of everything that takes place in Lancaster West in relation to the Kensington Academy Leisure Center and investment on the estate. If your more recent postings, you've made direct accusations about unfounded criminal actions. You will no doubt appreciate that if you have evidence of criminal activity, this should be reported and pursued through the police. I would ask that you remove from the blog unfounded accusations against named individuals which are your personal opinion and are likely to be considered defamatory and also likely to be perceived as harassment by the individuals concerned. I should be grateful if you could contact the Mel Sama immediately to confirm that you will remove the offending blog and that you will refrain from making unsubstantiated accusations of criminal behavior and personal comments about an individual's performance or actions while it's working on or for the estate management board. I look forward to receiving your cooperation and the receipt of your confirmation that you will remove your blog on or before July 29th, 2013. Yours sincerely, Verma Sama Senior Solicitor. Alright, and of course here, resident Darren Colin said on Twitter, any attempt to depoliticize an event like this is a political act itself. Despite numerous warnings by residents of Grenfell Tower, the local actions group believed that TMO did not take any significant action to rectify fundamental health and safety laws. And this is one from the pilots. And says here, those That the Grenfell Tower fire had nothing to do with politics. You need to see this clip. And the review is the little quick interview by BBC is very interesting. So you guys should look at that too. Reporter Holly Baxter of the London Independent detailed series prophetic warnings posted by the residents' advocacy group were routinely ignored. The Grenfell Action Group. Sorry about that. The Grenfell Action Group. Residents associations had consistently warned about the possibility of such a tragedy. This morning, they updated their website, which reads, "Regular readers of this blog, we know that we have posted numerous warnings in recent years about the very poor safety standards at Grenfell Tower and elsewhere in RBKC, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. All our warnings fell on deaf ears, and we predicted that a catastrophe like this was inevitable and just a matter of time." Links to their earlier post, it proves it. In 2013, they warned that shutting down the Bloxcart Park would mean just one narrow, restricted road for emergency vehicle access, something which eyewitnesses reported slowed down the fire engine response this morning. The same year, they wrote a long post about continuous electrical surges, which have been causing fire hazards in the building. Decisive action was only taken yesterday after highly distressed residents descended en masse on the estate office to demand help and assistance. They have woken to find smoke issues from various electrical appliances in their homes, including lighting fixtures, and descended in panic to the estate office to demand help. And in November 2016, their frustration about what they called inadequate fire escapes culminated in a frightening, persistent post titled "Playing with Fire." The Grenfell Action firmly believe that only a catastrophe event will expose the ineptitude and incompetence of our landlord, the KTCMO, and bring to an end the dangerous living conditions and neglect of health and safety legislation that they inflict upon their tenants and leaseholders. It is our conviction that a series of fires in a tower block is the most likely. Those who wield power at the KTCMO will be found out and brought to justice. But the Tories can't take all the credit. It's been said by some party grandees, not to mention Margaret Thatcher herself, that the Thatcher's era's greatest achievement was New Labour and Tony Blair, both of them who helped push Thatcher's mass privatization agenda over the goal line. Blair's corporatist Trojan horse was camouflaged under the heading of a New Deal for communities, along with the Neighborhood Renewal Unit, nested with Department for Communities and Local Government, and fueled by millions of pounds in regeneration grants from the EU, supposedly designed to lift up some of England's most deprived neighborhoods, which instead paved the way for a bold social engineering project which led to the mass gentrification of low-income areas across the UK, where massive profits were booked on back of privatizing council properties, taking advantage over inflated housing market. It was during this period that PPP takeover, like the TMO, took hold of large sectors of Britain's social housing. So, let's see what I have to say about this here. I'm just like looking through all this. Hold on here. But that's what happens when you have a bunch of some sites on here but no TMO, which is very interesting. So I'm just gonna bring this down a little bit and get these going here about the TMO and hold on here. But this is a real shame when you got folks out there believe they're smarter than everybody else. You don't have to be a richest person to know about housing and common sense. However, when it comes to government, along with fascism, along with corporations, it's a friendly, fascistic environment. They make you feel lovey-dovey and all that good stuff. So actually, I'm gonna start reading these open letters and all that, along with the other ones here, because folks have the right to know. So we're just gonna read these letters and all that, and we'll just start with the no TMO. But there's a link for that in the bottom, so you can actually see it for yourselves. And it says here about this is a website to the pro TMO cannot censor. They have tried. We continue to bring the truth behind the TMO. TMO, they don't gamble with our homes. We are ordinary residents of the Unwin and Ferry estates in London SE15 who don't want a tenant management organization to run our estate. We want to remain with honest, transparent, and accountable Southwark Council management. Rogue tenant management organizations, TMOs. There are many opportunities for TMOs to go rogue. And here the law is weak. Council control is very limited. Leaseholders and tenants may have conflicting aims. Residents, that's us, rely on honest, fair people to comprise the TMO board of directors. TMOs have massive opportunities for fraud, negligence, misuse of power, and corruption. Money can be stolen directly. Sorry about that. Directly, TMOs have many areas for potential theft. Jobs can be given to friends or family. Housing can be allocated to friends or family, or bribes are payable to get a flat. Contractors can be encouraged to give backhanders or they won't get a job. TMO offices materials can be used for private purposes. Favored leaseholders can be let off service charges. This is the corruption, as the council cannot ignore it, is often the trigger to take back the rogue. TMO into council control, so the leaseholders end up having to pay the charges anyway. Here are some examples of rogue TMOs. This is what can happen if you have one ruling your estate. Complete failure. Cabot and Garden, Southwark, ran 400,000 pounds of debt. All sorts of problems. Collapsed. Lost Southwark Council a huge amount of money. See the Freedom of Information Act reported. And there's nothing right there. Apparent House, Southwark. Residents Ruling Committee were alleged to have let some leaseholders off their service charges, taken back into council control. Corruption, incompetence, misuse of funds, negligence. Penwith Manor TMO Lambeth closed down because the chair and the executive director went to expensive conferences to put posh hotels and build a TMO for these jaunts. Overspent its budget massively. Cedars TMO Lambeth executive order used the TMO's money to carry out works on his own property, which was outside the borough. Favored residents refused to get rid of him. Cali EMB Lambeth, after he used to go into the office late at night to watch dubious videos, the chair was thrown out amidst great acrimony, something he never forgave them for, and he pursued vindictive complaints in court cases for years afterwards. This TMO has been turned out now is much better. The flagship TMO, Kensington and Chelsea TMO, which manages 9,000 properties, has been in turmoil for years. And there's a private eye article on that too. Years of grievances are part of the KNC tenants' century on poor governance and questionable financial practices by board members. That's by Private Eye. Lowborough Estate TMO Lambeth went 400,000 pounds over budget, and the council had to bail it out, which means that money was taken from some other part of Lambeth's budget. Juniper House TMO Southwark. This was the first TMO created in Southwark 25 years ago. It used to be a very good community to live in, and the TMO was successful, but has fallen to the grip of a clique who ran the 74 properties. There is an astonishing amount of corruption and favoritism, including the chair of the board appointing itself to the executive director, paid worker post without a board meeting or any sort of proper process. See JupiterHouse.info. We will be bringing you more information on the scandal soon. Privatization. TMOs are a private limited company. Many anti-TMO activists believe that they are a way to soften up residents for eventual privatization, that they can more easily be turned into privatized housing acquisitions than ordinary council estates. The defense to Barred Gardens, TMO South Work Committee always claimed that there will have no attempt at privatization, but the moment a tiny unrepresented group got into power, they started the process or transferring the estate to a housing association privatization. Popular Harker Housing Association, Tower Hamlets, took over Lambury West TMO in 2005, seizing its office and assets, and there is a website for that. And of course here, Mansfield North, TMO Lambeth, was privatized by a private finance initiative, PFI Corporation, as a PFI would not invest in the TMO. Enthrold, Magdalen, and Thorsland, TMO's Lambeth, have formed the Lambeth Alliance of Tenant Management Association with the aim of stock transferring their 1,100 properties to a housing association with the ballot in early 2011. And you can click for the original document. And say if you go to some other rogue TMOs, please let us have the information so we can give people the complete picture of what can happen if you go down this route. Vote no to TMO. So that's just one of them about why they say it's very dangerous. And of course, there's an open letter to Hackney Council and Suffolk Estate, which is by open letter, which is opnlttr.com. And it came out 2nd of March 2016. It says here, Dear Hackney Council and the Hackney Home Suffolk Estate TMO. I'm writing this open letter with regards to organizations that are supposed to be regulated by the council. I had no problem with an organization named Suffolk Estate TMO that is supposed to be regulated by Hackney Council and Hackney Homes, and they have both failed to investigate into my complaints so far. I'm a web designer, and it started when I contacted phone by Suffolk Estate TMO to design a website for them. I met them in person. They told me they had some ongoing problems with their previous web design program. They didn't have a very good job on how they wanted to set up a new website for them. The manager of Suffolk Estates TMO signed contract. I designed the website for them. Everything was going smoothly until it came down to the point where they're supposed to be sending me for the content for the website. The content was turning up very late, 2-3 weeks to a month late when they had agreed deadlines, so I advised them of late fees according to a clause in the contract. I just want to make it clear that everyone is using personal emails for all company-related stuff. Okay. I am then all of a sudden contacted by someone claiming to be a vice chair of Suffolk Estate TMO from a personal email address. I have never met or heard of this person before. This person's name isn't even on the contract or anything. I am told by this vice chair you will not be liable for late fees. I am not aware of any deadlines. Provide the vice chair and when an email where other staff agree a deadline with me and a copy of a contract. Then I decided I should log into the website and check I haven't done all the work in the last email. My access to the website had already been blocked. They had simply locked me out of the website that hasn't been fully paid for. They also sent me an email claiming I have ignored their emails in an attempt to try to cover the dodgy things up. I was the one contacting them about deadlines. Why would I ignore them? The vice chair said we want to end the contract. We are not and will not be paying. I then sent the vice chair the invoice for the work done and said you may end the contract. The invoice has been paid. You may not use any of my work until it has been paid for. They again refused to pay for work done under the contract. I said I would take them to court. When I questioned them about blocking my access in an attempt to keep something that has been paid for, I was threatened by the vice chair asking me not to contact any of them, otherwise I would face legal action against me, even though they were the ones at fault and owed me money for work done and were in breach of contract. They could have simply paid for the work that they had done and ending the contract there, but they refused to do so and decided to do dodgy things instead. They were not using the website at this point. I thought it was good enough if they had just some principles and understand they haven't paid something and shouldn't use it. I simply didn't bother contacting them again because I had already sent them the invoice and was threatened not to contact them. 5 months went by and I'm going to for other people until someone else I know tells me Suffolk TMO phoned us for your no, and they had been phoning a few people just to get my no. I'm pretty sure I gave them my no in the first meeting, and they were the ones that phoned me. Remember, I'm pretty sure they also had emails with my phone number in them. I received a missed call from them. I assumed they realized their mistake and wanted to put things in the right case. I sued them for the debt. I already expected them to phone me for this other person told me about them. I called Suffolk Estate TMO, and they said manager isn't in. We will have to call you back. Then I got the call from manager. The manager later that day, he didn't introduce who he was. Yes, you hear the blend in the background. Don't worry about it. He just said, I'm calling for a Suffolk Estate TMO. You set up for the router for us. I said I had never set up a router for you. I designed a website for you, and you still owe me money for that. He didn't say another word and just hung up on me. I just ignored everything, thinking how silly they were, not even knowing who they are phoning and why they are phoning them. How can they have such incompetent people as managers? A few days later, I just checked what's going on with their website. It turned out they are using the website I designed for them. Then I thought about everything in more detail and decided to contact Hackney Council about my findings so far. My findings were: 1, I wasn't the only web design they had done with this. 2, they were now doing copyright infringement, which is a fraud, stealing and using something without Chris' permission. 3, no data protection was in place. All the personal email addresses, my personal mean, their own Gmail accounts, and how can a tenant management organization be using personal email accounts? Interesting stuff here, huh, folks? This means they could be replying to correspondence and complaints of tenants and vulnerable people, and these people's details are going into someone's personal inboxes that are even after they leave the Suffolk TMO. So this is a nice long letter. You can really read this on your own. But it's what I'm reading here is pretty damn ludicrous on their part. Trying to hide stuff and not work, not being cooperative. You know why? Because they don't really give a damn. They're just a bunch of slumlords. And now a lot of folks have suffered from this. So can I say this is a Tory Wickerman? A Tory Wickerman? Yeah. Very ritualistic too when you look at it. So this is something to really observe, which is a very complete turn off. Alright, let me just so this boom. But something you have to always see, my friends, it's just one of those ordeals that you gotta always gotta look at the world and see things a lot more different. I'm not really too pleased on what happened over there. And this is just an example. It's not just happening in England, but other areas of the rest of the Western world to the least. Alright, to the least. Can this be a ritualistic thing? Yeah. People could look at that too. There's expect some claims in those areas, respectfully speaking. So, you know what? I'm going to hit this one here. what Theresa May has to say from the Independent, and this is something very interesting what she has to say on this. Came out a few hours ago, to be exact, and it's by Joe Watts, political editor. And of course, there's a video on here. You can hear it from her own words. So this is what she has to say. Theresa May is under pressure, explains claims is negligent to improve fire safety buildings despite warnings about the potential tragedies like the Grenfell House Tower block. Gavin Barrell, the Prime Minister's new Chief of Staff, failed to give the go-ahead to add a safety review during his tenure as Housing Minister, despite it already had been delayed for years. His predecessor as Housing Minister, Brandon Lewis, declined to bring in a regulation forcing developers to fit sprinklers because he said it wasn't not the government's responsibility. Jeremy Corbyn ramped up pressure by calling for Barwell and others who had failed to act on calls for a safety review to face questioning. Theresa May ordered an urgent meeting of officials on Wednesday afternoon to ensure authorities were best placed to deal with the fire and its fallout, with the groups concluding that checks should be carried out other blocks. In 2013, all-party Parliamentary Fire Safety and Rescue Group called for a review of safety regulation after 6 people died, more than 20 were hurt in the 2009 blaze at Lacano House in Camberwell. So they haven't learned a damn thing, did they? But the group's honorary administrative secretary, Ronnie King, said successive ministers had failed to carry out the review that group's report called for. Speaking to LBC Radio, he said the group had looked at the fire suppression measures and all tower blocks with similar designs at Grenfell and noted that were around 4,000 buildings with no fire sprinklers fitted. He added, our group recommended that due to the speed that fire spread in Lacano House, the building regulations should be reviewed. It's nearly 11 years since it has been reviewed. And of course, you can see the 44 photos of the Grenfell Tower. There's a tower in front of that movie. Unbelievable, my friends. Former Chief Firehouse Mr. King confirmed that early this year, Mr. Barwell told him he was still considering the proposals for a review. He added, Mr. Barwell said he was still looking at it and was preparing to meet with all party groups. Then that's when the election was called. At the meeting, never happened, as Grenfell death toll rose to 12. It also emerges that Mr. Lewis recently promoted to immigration minister and had declined in 2014 to force building developers to fit sprinklers. The coroner's report into Lacano House had recommended regulations be updated and called for developers refurbishing high-rise blocks to be encouraging to install sprinkler systems. But 5 years later, Mr. Lewis told MPs that we believe that this is a responsibility of the fire industry rather than the government to market fire sprinkler systems effectively and encourage their wider installation. So it's like a finger-pointing game here. Yeah, he said the Tory government had committed to being the first to reduce regulations nationwide, pledging a 1 to 2 out rule. He added the cost of fitting of a fire sprinkler system may affect housing buildings, something we want to encourage, so we must wait what the impact that regulation has. Mr. Corbyn hit out at government's recording demanding that ministers be forced to answer questions on fire safety, suggesting spending cuts may also have a role to play. He said if you deny local authorities the funding they need, then there is a price that's paid. He went on, a review took place after the fire in Camberwell, and the government has that review. I believe we need to ask questions about the facilities, and resources have been given to local authorities that have tower blocks in the area, and frankly, most do. We need to deal with this. We need people to be safe, living high-rise buildings, and when asked whether that involved any current serving front bench politicians, he applied, obviously, ministers that served and received those reports must be questioned. But today, every focus and every concentration must be on saving and protecting life. As government spokesman said that following an Lacknell house fire, the coroner recommended the guidance relating to fire safety within the building's regulations be simplified. Work, he said, is ongoing. The coroner also asked to write to councils, encouraging them to consider retrofitting sprinklers, he said, adding this had happened. And we go on here. The spokesman added, our thoughts are with the residents and families of everyone caught up in this critical event. We stand ready to help in any way possible as the emergency services continue to stabilize the situation. The London Fire Brigade will be conducting their investigation, and at this stage, it would not be appropriate to comment on the cause of the fire. The cause of fire is so far unknown, but residents have previously raised concerns that a catastrophic event could happen, with an action group claiming that their warnings fell on deaf ears. The group said there was one entry and exit in Grenfell Tower during improvement works, the block at Latnier Road, and had issues with evacuation procedures. Following the fire, the group posted all of our warnings fell on deaf ears and were predicted that a catastrophe like this was inevitable in just a matter of time. Grenfell was fitted with zinc rain screen cladding and glazed curtain walling after a £10 million refurbishment. Have some suggested this could be exacerbated the life of the fire through the firm that carried out the work said it met safety regulations, announcing an urgent meeting of ministers and officials in the wake of the fire. The Prime Minister said she was deeply saddened. After the sessions finished, Police and Fire Minister Nick Hurd said they wanted to provide reassurance to people living in other buildings as soon as possible. He said, we have discussed with the Department of Communities and local government, local authorities, and the fire service process, whereby we seek to identify towers that might have similar process of refurbishment, a run system of checks, so we can, as quickly as possible, give reassurance to the people. London Mayor Sadiq Khan said there are questions that have to be answered after residents of the tower were told to stay in their flats in the event of the fire. What? It sounds like 9/11 when you think about that, my friends. The World Trade Center. Go inside! Go inside! Here's the reports on that. Very coexisting, I would say, right? Possibly. Mr. Khan condemned the bad advice given to residents of the West London tower block that was engulfed in flames overnight, killing its inhabitants and leaving many trapped inside the burning building. A newsletter to residents in 2014 said stay put policy worked because the block had been designed according to the rigorous fire safety standards. That's really strange, I would say. A lot of questions like that, my friends. And this is very, absolutely disturbing. You know what I'm saying? Can this be ritualistic ceremony secretly? Yeah, you'd be surprised what governments can do, man. They're a bunch of conniving bastards, I would say. But I don't like this at all, and this has to be a lesson for everyone else in these areas. Tenants' rights is essential, period. They're not pieces of garbage, they're not numbers, they're human beings. That's why I find it annoying. That's what I read. And shame on those sons of bitches. They're responsible. The big conspiracy on that for their negligence. Let the dominoes fall. Hopefully justice will be served. Okay, enough of that. Do another article here. Makes it short and sweet. And this one here came from the 10th Amendment Center. To the governor, Maine bill would prohibit any state gun registries. Came out June 12th. And it says here, on Friday, the Maine House gave final approval to a bill prohibiting any types of state firearms registry. The law will not only protect the privacy of Maine gun owners, it will also hinder the federal government's ability to develop a firearms database, creating a climate less favorable to federal gun control. Representative Patrick Corey, Republican from Windham, introduced a bill, not House Bill 9, LD9, with a bipartisan coalition of co-sponsors in January. Legislation prohibits creation of a state farm registry, notwithstanding any other provision of the law to the contrary. A government agency of the state or political subdivision of the state may not keep or cause to be kept complete comprehensive registry of privately owned firearms and the owner of those firearms within its jurisdiction. The House approved the Joint Committee on Criminal Justice and Public Safety, all to pass, report by a 122-24 margin. So it's like this, my friends. Whoever voted no on this, call those bastards out. All right. The Senate unanimously passed it 35-0. Both chambers and voted for LD9 to be enacted by a voice vote. The legislation now goes to Governor Paul LePage's desk for his consideration. If enacted, LD9 will ensure privacy of gun owners in Maine. It will also hinder federal gun control efforts. The federal government depends on state cooperation for all kinds of information gathering. For instance, most of the information in DEA license plate tracking database reported by the Wall Street Journal comes from states and local law enforcement. Local police operate tracking systems paid by federal grant money that the DEA then taps into the local database. We say encroachment. In the same way, the ATF or other federal agency could easily create a federal gun registry using information gathered by state or local governments. By prohibiting any such databases in the state, Maine ensures this can't happen. Simply put, no data means no federal database. Ensuring the privacy of firearms owners also subtly undermines federal efforts to regulate guns. As we've seen with marijuana and industrial hemp, a federal regulation becomes ineffective when states ignore it and pass it, encouraging the prohibit and activity anyway. Federal government lacks the enforcement power necessary to maintain its ban, and people will willingly take on the small risk of federal sanctions if they know the state will not interfere. This increase when the state actively encourages a market. Less restrictive state gun laws will likely have a similar impact on federal gun laws. It will make much more difficult for the feds to enforce any future federal gun law, and increase the likelihood that states with few limits will simply refuse to cooperate with future federal efforts. States' actions like prohibiting gun registries lower barriers for those wanting the option of defending themselves with firearms and encourages a gun-friendly environment that will make federal efforts to limit firearms that much more difficult. What's next? Governor LePage will have 10 days, excluding Sundays, from the date of the transmittal to his office to sign or veto LD9. If he doesn't act, it becomes law without a signature. If session adjourns, if signing before the deadline passes, and the governor fails to act, the bill becomes law unless returned legislator within 3 days at the next meeting of the same legislator. So I gotta give them credit for that. It's a fantastic report. More of the right to privacy. So and it's natural law as well. It's not the federal government's damn business to say what you own. Okay, that's just not just firearms, but anything else. So I'm very pleased to narrate this, and it has nothing to do with the NRA either. And I say that out of respect. It's just principles. And that is really it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me something that's interesting and may want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Scene.life, Minds.com, Freedoms Network, FutureNet.club. And I always said Tumblr, I always said YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Patreon.com /LokiLuck3. All right. Furthermore, you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is the number 3 altogether, at gmail.com, or for you encrypted types, LokiLuck03 at protonmail.com. All right. Once again, thank you for your time. But always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.